I'd like to introduce the first speaker this morning, and that is another Len Nielson, who is the Unit Forester for the Mariposa Merced unit of CAL FIRE. He has been in forestry for more than 20 years, spending about 10 years in private industry in the last 11 years with CAL FIRE, and he's been in his current position as Unit Forester for this office for a little more than a year. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Len Nielson.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, right on. As Len said, my name is Len Nielson. I'm the Unit Forester. I'm going to try to kind of stay right in here so then we can have this presentation shown on the web later on. But I really don't like doing presentations from behind a computer. So, quick background as a Unit Forester. I got here about a year ago, like Len said. And the number one priority and job that I've been doing for the last year is not only monitoring the tree mortality here in the unit in Mariposa and Madera County, but also trying to encourage homeowners like yourselves to take care and reduce the fuel load on their properties through a legal and efficient manner. So, and that's really what this whole presentation is about, is how we can help you reduce the fuel loads on your property and the programs and assistance that is currently available to you. So, tree mortality in MMU, this looks familiar. This is in Mariposa County. I believe this is looking back up. Actually, this is back up towards off of Miami Mountain. So it's probably could be one of your houses. And this was taken about 6 months ago, and now the rest of the green trees, about half of those that were green then are now brown. This is Miami Mountain. This was taken in December of 2015, and you can see that pretty much about 80% of all the Ponderosa pines, all these are Ponderosa pines that go up in here. There's some sugar pine, and then there's some brush and some oaks and some firs that are up high, and those ones are less impacted from the drought and the bug mortality. So most of the pines, this is looking up towards Lush Meadows, is right over here. Most of these trees are all dead. And so we'll talk a little bit about when a tree is dead, but pretty much if you see the top dying and you get about 25% of that tree, 25% turn brown, and you see the pitch pockets coming out of that tree or sapping out, that tree is dead. And it's not going to come back no matter how much more rain we get. So not only are the conifers being affected, but the hardwoods are too. The white oaks, golden oaks, black oaks, the live oaks, these are all being affected. We're seeing a lot of these, especially after we've had this first snowfall, where now we look back, when we look at the snowfall, the weight of the snow on the trees are just literally peeling apart. Because the tree doesn't have the water or the moisture within it, the tree doesn't have the vigor that the water provides or the strength at the cellular level for that cell to hold together. So because of that breakdown, the trees actually fall apart. And the conifers do the same thing, especially bullpine or gray pine. These are the bugs. These bugs are pretty tiny. Frank is going to talk a little bit more about the bugs, Frank Bigelow. But this is the western pine beetle, the ips, and the red turpentine. This bug right here, western pine beetle, also known as Ponderosa pine, or I don't have Ponderosa pine in here. Ponderosa pine beetle looks a lot like this guy, and he's the size of a grain of rice. That's how big he is. The problem is that there's millions of bugs. For the millions of trees that are being killed, there's 100,000 bugs in each tree. So there's a lot of bugs that are attacking the trees, and the population of these bugs right now, the population is so great that they're able to attack and overwhelm a healthy tree. So their population has grown unchecked for the last 4 years due to the drought. Their population is so strong that they can attack a healthy tree and kill it. So what they do is they go in and they drill a hole in the tree, just a little tiny hole. These bugs are super tiny. See the pin right here to show how small they are? This is the Ponderosa pine beetle. See how it looks a lot like that western pine beetle? this pine beetle drills a little tiny hole in the tree and it makes a nest. When the eggs and larvae hatch, they grow out and that nest kind of gets bigger. And it stops the cambium layer, which is that layer in between the bark and the hardwood of the tree, from functioning. It makes like a scar on the tree, and that part of the tree will never work again unless the tree over a long time will outgrow it, and it kind of grows around it. But initially, for the next 5 or 6 years, that tree will have a dead spot. The problem is the bugs go in here, they go in here, they go in here, they go in here, and they go all the way around the tree, and it girdles the tree with these little nests that the bugs make, and that's what kills the tree. And in the bottom quotation here is, if a pair of bugs, they hatch about 120 larvae. If half of those survive at 60 to reproduce, and we have 4 reproduction cycles, which is what we've been seeing for the last 4 years, is these bugs have had 4 reproduction cycles, because the winter time, we haven't had cold weather like we are this winter, where it's below 50 degrees. At below 50 degrees, the bugs go dormant. They are not killed. They only go dormant until it warms up. So there's a little break where the bugs aren't reproducing or doing much right now because it's cold. But once it gets above 50 degrees, then they continue to grow and their life cycle continues to cycle through. If they have 4 generations in a year, that's 12 million bugs from the pair. So that's why we're seeing this huge outbreak, this huge infestation, as it expands up the hill and over the hill and around. And these bugs are naturally present within our forest community, so it's not like they came from somewhere else. Their populations are just expanding. Typically we only have about a 2 or 3% population level. But over the last 4 years, their populations have doubled and tripled, and that's why we are where we are today. What are we doing about it? Well, one of the things we're doing about it is we're mapping it, so then we can get a handle as to where the problem is and what we can do about it. A lot of these trees are up on the hillside. They're going to die, they're going to fall down and rot. And we're never going to see that tree, we're never going to touch that tree. Unless a fire comes through and burns it up, it's just going to rot in place. Now, a lot of these trees that are dying are the mature conifers or the mature pines. And so they're and I'll say a mature tree is over between 30 and 40 years old and above. So those mature trees are the ones that are most susceptible to the mortality. So the younger trees, the 25-year-old trees and below, that are surviving the drought, because the baby trees are being killed by the drought. So the trees in between are the ones that are currently surviving and lasting the longest. So those trees are still there. And those trees make up roughly about 20% of the population of the trees within Mariposa County. So even if all the mature trees die, there still will be trees there. And once those trees fall down, you'll be able to see those trees. So you look on the hillside and you see this massive amount of dead trees like I showed in that earlier picture. Rest assured that there are actually trees underneath that. So as this disaster progresses and these trees will fall down and rot, you will see green vegetation. You won't see bare mineral soil underneath once those trees fall. That's not true. Some people think it is. So we're making maps of what's going on. We do these maps with the U.S. Forest Service, do an aerial detection survey. They literally fly over a low-flying plane and they say, look, there's a dead tree there, polygon of dead tree, and they map those polygons. And then they rate how many dead trees are within that polygon on a per acre basis, trees per acre, which we'll talk about later. We're going to do ground truthing. We're going to drive around the unit, which we've already started to do, and said this is the edge of the mortality. Pretty much the edge of the mortality is also the same edge of the Ponderosa pine habitat. Just like in animal, trees have habitats that they grow and thrive in. So these habitats, these pine habitats, the mortality is right from the edge and in. There's a FRAP map where the mortality is the worst. This website right here has a mortality tree viewer, tree mortality viewer, where you can see your house and what they've ranked it as. And I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. And then we're again gathering data on the high hazard zones within Mariposa County as well as Madera County.
Is that website in this information that you handed out?
It's in yours, right? Frank's is it's in Frank's. There we go. So this is the map. This is mid-pines right here. You can zoom in and out. Here's Mariposa. These polygons are the ones that represent the levels of mortality and how many trees break. The darkest color here is where the highest mortality exists that they've mapped, and then it goes from dark to light in range. And I forgot to put the legend on it. I apologize for that. But this is what you can zoom into, and you can zoom into your home to see where it is, and you can turn on and off these layers to see, so then you can see where your house is. And you can change the map data. It's very interactive to look and see where your stuff's at, where your house is at, and what's around you. Not that you can't see it already. So why is this? Well, we're still in the drought. Even though we're at 106% of rainfall, I think today, or close to that. This drought, having the water, having the trees, having the ability and the moisture to start to defend themselves against the bugs. A lot of these trees will still fall victim to the infestation, because there are just so many bugs. Even if the tree is able to kill several of these bugs as they enter by sapping out or pitching them out, there's still so many bugs that tree can only do so much. Trees can do a lot, but there still will be additional mortality even if we come out of the drought. But we are, of course, we are right here, kind of in the heart of the drought. Not the best place to be right now. But hopefully this El Nino continues and we get more and more rain and we get more and more snow. The best thing we can hope for is the colder weather, so then the bugs are dormant longer. Gives the trees the opportunity to get moisture. Long-term management. Well, long-term management is all about forest health. The healthier the forest is, the more that the forest can have a larger carrying capacity, which means thinning out the trees, so then there are less trees on the soil, so then the trees aren't stressed when something happens like the drought or a bug infestation. So because we have so many trees per acre, we have too many trees per acre taking up all that space, then that means that they're all stressed. So you'll see in some places where there's pockets, those trees have been thinned before. I would expect to see that is where we will see the trees that survive. Is where it's already been thinned 5 or 6 years ago before the drought came in. It's never really a good idea to thin your trees during a drought or during the hot summer, because then the trees react to not only sun scald, but also the mechanical damage within the summer, which leaves them more susceptible to other insects and other diseases. So best time to do it is when the tree's moistures are high, and now that we're at 110% or 107% of moisture levels, hopefully this spring, the trees will be healthy enough to begin to thin. Oh, and then some people have been calling me about planting exotic trees in their yard besides the Ponderosa pine. The Ponderosa pine is adapted to our climate and our elevations here. It is the best growing tree we have. Even though this drought has come, it is still the best growing tree for the area. So Ponderosa pine is still a good choice for planting, replanting. Again, to thin and reduce, pick the best trees on your site to leave behind, and the person that can do that is a registered professional forester like myself, or licensed timber operator. They know woods and trees very well, and there's a list in the back, short list in the back, but we also have a list of all the licensed timber operators and all the registered professional foresters on our CAL FIRE website under resource management. So you can go there and put in RPF list or LTO list, and it'll pop right up. And I'm Len Nielson, again, your unit forester. And some information here for some websites. Are there any questions for me?
Can these bark beetles jump species of trees?
Yeah, the Ponderosa pine beetle can, in fact, go to sugar pine and or the tamarack pine. So they're pine killers. So pretty much all the pine trees, this Ponderosa pine can attack and kill. So yeah, additionally, I just wanted to mention one thing what the county is doing before I forget. So the CAL FIRE has been given about $70,000 or $60,000 to spend within the right-of-way or within these high hazard zones to remove the trees that are already dead. So you're going to start to see our CAL FIRE crews out there working and falling trees next to the roadway that are not next to the PG&E lines. So if the PG&E line is in the road, don't look for one of our CAL FIRE engine crews or inmate crews in the roadway. But if there aren't PG&E lines there, then we're going to be falling trees in that area. So expect to have some traffic delays from our guys following these trees. And don't be surprised if you get a letter in the mail that says, can we have permission to cut down your trees on your property? Because CAL FIRE doesn't currently have permission to step on your property. That's called trespass. And so we need permission to do so. So expect a letter, and we would really appreciate it if you sign the letter. Usually it's 3 times, and you send it back to us so then we have permission to come onto your property to cut down your trees. Now what are we going to do with those trees? Well, just like PG&E, we don't have the ability to take that log and do anything with, but we do have the ability to treat the slash, to get rid of that fire danger. So look for that on the future. We have some funding available to us that was given to our unit. Like I said, about $60,000 for that purpose for Mariposa County, and that money comes from your SRA fee. So that money is coming back to the county. On that note, the SRA grants that the Mariposa Fire Safe Council applied for, they are approved, and that was to the tune of about $200,000 for this county. And that came from the SRA fee also. So part of my job as a unit forester, my funding comes from your SRA fee. It's my job to get that money back to the county. So that money is coming back to the county, and so hopefully we get our fair share. So, any other questions?
Yeah, what does kill the pine beetle?
Water. The best defense against the pine beetle is moisture in the tree. The other mechanisms that have been shown to deter the pine beetle are some pheromones called verb splat, or splat verb. I think it's verb splat, and it's verbenone, and that is a pheromone that you put on the tree or around the tree that says the tree is full of bugs already. Go somewhere else, bugs. So the beetles put out a pheromone that says, oh, let me start over. The trees put out a pheromone called terpenes, and it says that I'm stressed out, right? And so the bugs can detect that. They go to those trees first. Then the trees put out, the bugs attack the tree and they put out a pheromone that says, hey, the party's here. And then more bugs come. And then the last pheromone is it's full, there's no more party supplies, go somewhere else, and the bugs go to the next bird tree. Okay, any other question?
Will you be doing that trimming on roads that are not county maintained?
Currently, the county maintained roads are the ones that are first, but that doesn't mean that we won't extend that out to non-county maintained roads. Again, look for a letter that says we would like to cut trees down on your property, and that would be where that would fall. So that would be secondary.
Hello, what time of year are the adult beetles, the new adults, moving and reinfesting the new tree on a normal life cycle?
Well, it takes about 60 to 90 day life cycle under normal weather conditions, and so that varies upon that's various upon the population and the strong populations. You'll see bugs emerge and swarm every few days in the summer.
So it's summertime,
so
it's
it's
real
continuous. It's continuous, and then only when it's less than 50 degrees, average temperatures when they slow down. So any time of the year when it's more than 50 degrees, they can swarm.
So it can multiple times a year they're moving?
Correct. Last year I think we had 4 or 5 generations.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question and then I have to go.
Just the SRA funds, are those for communities or?
The SRA funds are being distributed to the communities for the greater good. And so it's not a specific landowner that gets the assistance, it's the greater good. And right now we're targeting these high hazard zones, basically the roadways, the trees that can fall into the roadways, because who wants to have a tree in the middle of the road so that we can't get emergency services to your location? right? That's our priority one need. All right, thank you very much. If there's any other questions Frank can answer for me on my behalf, or he'll give me a call. I have baseball tryouts, I have to go. Thank you.